Welcome back to Cabarabia, my monthly rumination on all things relevant to the world of cabaret and the nightclub experience. Every program, I profile and interview the leading performers, composers, musicians, producers, and venue owners, all the people that bring you live performances in intimate settings. And welcome back. Welcome back to Cabarabia, my little podcast that could, my monthly rumination on all things relevant to the nightclub experience, live entertainment in intimate settings. I'm very, very excited for today's show. This is a very special occasion, actually. For the last 7 or 8 months, I've been working on a new project that I'm absolutely in love with called You Are My Lucky Star, My Years of Working with Debbie Reynolds. And this is the project created by one of my great friends and longtime clients, Lois Bourgon. So this episode is about the making of this show, You Are My Lucky Star, My Years of Working with Debbie Reynolds. It's Lois's multimedia memoir of the years she spent working and traveling with Debbie Reynolds. And one of my special guests today is Ms. Lois Bergan. Hi, Lois. Welcome.
Hi, Clifford.
It's good to have you here. I thought before we jump into the Debbie story, I just wanted to give people a little background on you and me together. We first met, I think it's been about 12 or 13, 14 years ago now. You had just made a new CD, and our mutual friend Todd Murray introduced us, and I produced the CD release party. The album was called Seasons of Life, and that was our first thing that we did together. And then we've worked continuously over the years, generating a great many wonderful shows. I'm very proud of the things we've done together. And most recently, we just did a show called High Standards, The Birth of the Great American Songbook. And we finished that one in October of last year with an outdoor garden concert. It was during the pandemic year, and we didn't want to be stopped by that. So Lois has a beautiful backyard, and we filled it with twinkle lights and a socially distanced audience, and we filmed it, and it's available on YouTube. So check that out. Anyway, one of the other shows that we did together, once again, just catching up on the background, I loved this graphic. My co-producer of the podcast here, Andrew Apple, created this graphic for us. We did a show that was all about the leading ladies that Lois has played in musical theater. She basically has played every major leading lady role. So this was from Dorothy to Glenda, and I just absolutely love that graphic. I was so happy with it. Anyway, so that brings us up to the present. Hi, Lois.
Hi, Clifford.
So, Lois, in her early career, why don't you tell us about how you encountered Debbie, and then I've got some pictures to share.
Well, yes. When I was in a group, that was a show group that worked in Las Vegas and Reno, mostly just Las Vegas, as an opening act for a number of different stars. And we were invited to sing one of the nominated songs, the 1970 Golden Globe Awards, dating myself there. And Debbie Reynolds saw us, and she loved our act, and she asked us to go on tour with her. And we did. And so we worked with her for a number of years on touring the country, and then in Las Vegas, Lake Tahoe, and Reno, on TV a couple of times.
Let's start and let's show some pictures here. The group was called Unusual We. This is you all, I think, probably before you got hooked up with Debbie, right?
Yes. That was before.
And then she saw you and she brought you into the act. This is you in a Flatberg outfit when one of the gigs. You're a knockout, Lois. Look how gorgeous you are. Look at you, a bombshell.
Yeah, those were the days.
So one of the exciting things about the show that we're about to do is we're having a couple of the members from the Unusual We, the original members from the Unusual We, join you performing. You have Soon Evans and also Sherry Williams, who's on Debbie's side there. She's going to be performing in the show. So we're getting ready to debut the show at Catalina Jazz Club in Los Angeles on Sunday, September 26th. We're doing a brunch show, which should be great. At 11:30, doors open at 11:30, and then the show will start at 1. It's about 90 minutes long, and it's multimedia, so we'll be showing slides and pictures and everything as we tell the stories. And singing the music of Debbie's career, and Lois will be sharing stories of her many years of working with her. And it's been such a moving experience. I tease you a little bit, Lois, because every rehearsal, probably about every half hour or so, you take a minute to stop and cry a little bit.
Yeah.
It's a moving experience, I would think.
It is. Those memories are such a part of my life, for 50 years, we had experiences with Debbie, not only when we were with her on the road, but years later, we would see her. She'd have us over for parties. We'd go and see her perform. She always introduced us to the audience. She made us feel welcome. She came to other parties that we had too, and so there was a real connection over the years with her.
And didn't she at some point actually just ask you to call her mother because she was such a den mother?
Yes, she did. She had us all the group. She said, "Just call me mother." And she was often giving us advice in her dressing room late at night after the show. We'd sit and have a little glass of wine, and she'd give us some advice and about boys or whatever.
And also, during these years, you also got to know the family quite well because Carrie performed in the show as young as like 13, right, when she joined?
Yes. She was 13 and really a sparkling wit even then. Just she was something else and very talented.
And Todd was with you as well?
Todd was there. He was 11, I think. And so he wasn't performing, but he was on the road with us, and he had his tutor with him, and he was always around, and it was really fun to have him around because he was such a nice kid.
Yeah, he seems like a really great guy. I'm thrilled that one of the things I'm really looking forward to about today is that we are going to get a visit from Todd. Todd has agreed to come talk to us this afternoon. And so he'll be here soon. Really looking forward to that. Before we bring Todd on, there's a number you all did on the Tom Jones special. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, one of the numbers that we did with Debbie was she loved it, and in fact we did it in her nightclub act, and then she was invited to be on the Tom Jones show. So she brought us with her so she could do this number. It's called the Rock Medley. And we had these plexiglass boxes that we moved around the stage, and everybody would either be under them or on top of them, and Debbie would be on top of them. And it was, it's quite a number.
Yeah, well, and fortunately through the magic of technology, we have that for you now. So sit back and enjoy every song ever written in the 70s as sung by Debbie and the Unusual We.
Someone needs me, someone I've needed so long. you for the one. Now I'm having so much fun. You treated me so kind. I'm about to lose my mind. You made me so very happy. I'm so glad you came into my life. Thank you, baby. Oh, yeah.
So much need, even in my dreams.
I can hear you. I can hear you calling me. I'm so in love with you. All I ever want to do is
Thank you, baby. Thank you, baby.
you made me so very happy. You made me so very happy, baby.
I'm so glad you came into my
I'm so glad you came into mine. But I love you more today than yesterday. But not as much as tomorrow. Yeah, I love you more today than yesterday. But darling, not as much as tomorrow. All you need is love. All you need is love. All you really need is love. All you need is love. Thank you, your fellow man, for my helping hand, for the love in your heart. You say it's getting late, oh please don't hesitate, for the love in your heart. And the world will be a better place. Yeah, the world will be a better place for you and for me. You just wait, and you'll see, and you'll see. Come on, people now, smile on the road, everybody get together, try to love one another right now. Keep hugging. Oh, once in my life, gonna let sorrow hurt me, not like it's hurt me before. Oh, once I have something I know won't desert me, I'm not alone anymore. Oh, once I can say it, now you can't take it. Oh, yes, I know I have nobody to make it. Once in my life, once in my life, I am someone who needs, someone who needs. Hey!
All right. So, I love that so much. The whole point of this podcast is just to show that clip. I love that clip so much. Anyway, so here is what makes today such a special occasion. I am thrilled that we have this special guest with us today. Please help me welcome Todd Fisher. Todd, for anybody who might not know, is the son of Debbie Reynolds and Eddie Fisher, and the brother of Carrie Fisher, the uncle of Billie Lourd, and he himself a Renaissance man, a producer, director, cinematographer. You've sat in basically every seat in show business, and you are an extremely prolific production house yourself now, even. So welcome, Todd. How are you?
Thank you. By the way, you left out Darth Vader, because technically if I'm Princess Leia's brother, then Darth Vader
Oh,
is also
right.
my father. I'm not talking
It
about
just
Eddie
doesn't
either.
end.
I'm talking about the Darth Vader.
It's funny. I've been working with Lois for about 7 or 8 months on this project, so I'm very steeped in Debbie's stories and Carrie's stories. And I also, as I mentioned to you once, I knew Carrie a little bit in our early 30s. We were friendly. And the universe of you all just expands. It's connected to so very many things. It's like you guys are so interconnected.
The costume behind me is Carrie's first stage costume from the Desert Inn, and I played guitar and sang with my mother and sister. And then as that went on for like 2 summers, and I started to think this wasn't for me, and Carrie continued. But then just a few short years later, of course, she went on to make Star Wars, and she did that at 19. And Star Wars became the most significant science fiction film of its time. And ironically, my mother was 19 when she did Singing in the Rain. So pretty significant and interesting that they both did that at 19. And my mother, you know, her favorite thing, though, even though she made some great movies, was live performing. She loved to connect with a live audience. She found that the most rewarding. And of course, Carrie did as much. You know, she preferred behind the scenes. She loved to write, obviously, but she had her start. You know, Lois was right there when Carrie started.
That's right.
Right. We talk about that. You know, Lois tells about that Carrie had said once, I made my first movie at 17, like my mother. I got famous at 19, like my mother, and I married a short Jewish singer, like my mother. So
It's true. My mother actually, when she made a film, The Tender Trap with Frank Sinatra, he was obviously about 10 years older than her, and they became good friends. And of course, in the movie, they were romantically involved. And at a certain point, he says, like a brother would say to her, whatever you do, Debbie, never marry a singer. Forgetting about the short Jewish singer, just said, don't marry a singer because you really want to do that. So the very next year, my mother goes out, of course, and marries the singer. Of course, he also was a short Jewish singer. And you're right. So now, but the backstory, though, on Carrie marrying Paul, she was actually engaged to Dan Aykroyd.
Oh, really?
And I was, so Carrie had actually, even Danny had given his mother's wedding ring to Carrie. I mean, it was serious. They were engaged and to be married. And so he kind of threw him over for Paul. And I never thought that was the right move. I didn't know Paul at all. That to me was kind of surprising. I also felt that they were a little too similar, but Danny we were good friends, and you know, he'd come over and we'd smoke a joint together or whatever you do back in the 70s and 80s. And we had we were involved musically together. I had a recording studio. And so it seemed like a better fit. He's also a very mellow guy. Paul Simon is not a mellow guy.
Right.
He's not. So, you know, Danny and I'd ride motorcycles together. He's kind of a guy's guy, you know, and I wouldn't say that about Paul, although he does like to go to boxing ring matches. So
right.
And baseball.
You know, I want to show just a couple pictures here of you, Todd. There's a picture that's the front picture of your website, toddfisher.com. And actually, I encourage anybody to go check out more because there's so many interesting things that Todd is up to that you can find out on toddfisher.com. But one of the things we talk about in Lois's show is Debbie's lifelong commitment to collecting Hollywood memorabilia, costumes, wardrobes, and finding a museum for them. And I know that's something you've still been involved in, and you have all that stuff now, right?
That is true. A lot of it was sold, as you know, at these big auctions back in 2012, 11 and 12. But I kept a lot of things. In fact, my mother, when she was doing the auctions, wanted to sell even a lot of the things that were hers. And I said that I wanted to keep those things. And she was like, you know, for what? I mean, were you going to wear them or something? I'm like, I don't know, maybe. But even if I don't get to that, I will find something to do. So all around me right now, and I'm going to make an effort to switch that camera. I'm going to try to switch that camera, John, if I can. Okay, so what we're looking at here is a 3-sheet of Singing in the Rain, which is kind of unusual unto itself. And then on the side is Gower Champion and my mother's costumes from Give a Girl a Break. And it's cute little, she also did a number in that same movie with Bob Fosse. The gold costume is her Vegas costume. And then you see my mom peeking around there, a little cutout of her. It's probably hard to see with the lighting. We were talking about the artifacts. I mean, that's just some of them, obviously. And I'm kind of surrounded by droids and different artifacts and things that we chose to sort of just put out here. when we're doing shows, but I have hundreds more. And my mother, as I said, when she wasn't going to do the museum, she was like, well, if we're not going to do the museum, why keep these things? So I kind of overruled her and kept a lot of things. But, like, here's her Oscar. I mean, she didn't have much to say about that, but I kept that. We keep a lot of things. She kept only a few things that she cared about. The rest of it was sold, but I kept all her costumes. I have about 60 of her film costumes and maybe a similar number of stage costumes, including costumes from The Unusual We, from all of her touring shows.
Wow. So, Todd, you're in Las Vegas, right? Isn't that where you live?
I'm in Las Vegas right now.
And you have an amazing setup. It's you're the CEO of a company you call Hollywood Motion Picture Experience, right? And it's a production house of all recording, filming, everything.
We have facilities in California and here, and we've tried to build some unique facilities here. So we built a very high-end recording studio / film mixing room here, so we can do anything from scoring to dialogue replacement, sound effects, or albums. We also have, and that also doubles as a very high-end screening room. It's also a live theater. It's right next door to the room that I'm in now. This theater that I'm in now is another live theater, but more set up for what we're doing now, or seminars and things.
Yeah,
like
I've been watching you and your wife. I have a picture I'd like to show up of you and Catherine Hickland. You all do Facebook Live events pretty regularly. I've been watching a lot of those. I knew her from Knight Rider, and I knew her from One Life to Live, but I didn't know until I was watching something the other day, and if she was Fantine in Les Miserables, that really surprised me.
Most people do not know that she has a very spectacular voice, and still to this day is a fantastic singer and harmonizer. And when she gets a chance, she loves to do it. We're going to actually do a couple of songs, and the studio is just finishing up right now. So we're going to be doing some things with her and some of her friends. And I have a lot of friends in this town. I've been here since the 50s, literally. And, there used to be a vibe in Vegas where people used to like to hang out, and people in the business and perform and do things. And the hotel that my mother had here in Vegas was very much like that. So even people like Steve Wynn were not hanging out at the Mirage. They were hanging out at the Debbie Reynolds Hotel.
Right.
Because it was this fun, old school kind of feel. Now, I'm not building a hotel again. I've had enough of that. That wore us all out. But it wasn't so much the hotels, it was her ex-husband.
So do you sing these days? Because I've heard you, and you're an amazing singer. You have a beautiful voice.
I'll sing something with Kat. I'm still kind of caught up in the crooner genre.
Right.
I don't, so I can do that type of singing. I don't know that I haven't really tried to do a lot of other types of singing.
Right. Well, I guess there are some genes involved in that too, probably, right?
Yeah, Carrie used to tease me about that. She said, we have sort of a gene pool jackpot.
Yeah. That was one of the I'm one of the people from the camp of that. I had wished that Carrie had sung more, because she was an unbelievable singer. She had the most gorgeous voice. I can't believe she didn't pursue it more.
There's quite a bit of that out there. There is stuff that she did do.
Yeah.
She did sing more than you might think. I was happy to see that she was singing. Excuse me, I'm just changing it so I can watch you guys more carefully here.
I think I saw a YouTube of her doing My Guy, singing My Guy, and she was fantastic. She has such an amazing voice.
Well, all the way back to the early Saturday Night Live stuff,
Yeah.
back in the 70s. And, but, in the day when she was doing stuff with Lois and all of us, she was quite a singer back then. In fact, we considered her to be a belter. She had a really, just belted it out.
Yeah.
And there's, in Bright Lights documentary, there's early footage of her singing when we were still teenagers. And but later on, when she did her One Woman show, Wishful Drinking, she sings in there.
Right.
Happy Days, she'd like to do that. I also recorded the last show my mother did at the South Point, and we all sang in that show again, in sort of tribute to my mom. We sang There's No Business Like Show Business, but Carrie sang I'll Never Say No to You, and she changed the lyrics a little bit She says, I'll never say no when you've done too much blow.
Yes. Yes. I've
like
seen
to
that. I've seen those
adjust
clips.
The lyrics.
So you remember Lois and the Unusual We. You remember those days. Lois told me
certainly
once that
do.
you were this wonderful little kid, this wonderful little man who was his eyes were always agog at all the showgirls running around the pool and everything.
I always appreciated that side of it. Very much. There was another aspect. So when I was in the show, there was something that when you're like 8, 9 years old, 10 years old, it's very distressing to have to bathe every day and wash your hair because you put on makeup salts and you have to wash every day. And that's very disconcerting to, a young guy, at that age bracket at 10 years old, whatever. And, but the great part was, you might remember Pinky, my mother's hairdresser. Pinky was my mom's hairdresser, and she had the most enormous breasts. And so when she would wash my hair, she would, my face would get like pushed up into these enormous breasts. I always felt that was a good benefit. It didn't quite outweigh the whole bathing every day thing, but it was a consolation prize.
So another picture I want to show here is the cover of the book you wrote. You wrote a beautiful book called My Girls. The introduction is just fantastic. What you wrote in the introduction, but tell us a little bit about this book.
When I wrote this book, I would never have written it if it wasn't for the fact that Carrie and my mother were gone, because Carrie was the most amazing writer I've ever known. And what was unique about her, of course, is the way she could tell a story. It was always amazing, the way she could just lay out something in a way that nobody else could. The way she saw things, because she was bipolar, allowed her to see the world in a very different way. And it also allowed her to articulate things in a very different way. But when they were both gone, I was in a little bit of a panic because there were a lot of stories that needed to be told. And I also wanted to get in front of some of the people that were going to try to make a fuss out of Carrie's drug abuse. So I wanted to put everything in perspective and balance and make it about love and family and not about whether Carrie did blow or not. So that was why I jumped on it. And I had written a script with Carrie called 813 Greenway Drive, which is where we grew up. And so it had a lot of stories in there. So I got a really nice kickstart because we'd already written a lot of these stories, and to get some of them together that were sort of in the coming of age era. But then, of course, it starts if you've read the book, you'll know it really starts even before I'm born. And I will take my mother's account of some of these things and move all the way through. And then, of course, I go all the way to the end. And that was a very difficult story to tell. But at the same time, it's kind of beautiful, and it's also healing in some ways. And hopefully it helped people get the loss because it helped me. The book was very cathartic and helped me get over things. I think that's probably the best reason to do it. It turned out, I think, better than I expected. I had a very good editor, Lindsay Harrison, who wrote and edited my material. I mean, I would just give her piles of stuff, and she was the one who strung it together in a book form. I wouldn't know where to begin. When Carrie's first book was Postcards from the Edge, she didn't know anything about books back then, and that's kind of where I was with this, right at the beginning. I'd never done a book. But so I had some good help to make sure that it was coherent, because I was like a D student in English.
But you definitely have a story to tell and you're the only person that has that perspective, for sure.
I have one thing that I have been handed down, Carrie also, but me maybe even more so, is I am sort of the family archive, and now that archive is also the storytelling. And in earlier generations throughout history of the world, the storytellers were the ones that handed down the history and the stories to the future generations. And this is before you even had books. It had to be done in a verbal fashion, in storytelling fashion. Now we still do that. We have movies and other high-tech stuff now, but somebody has to remember and tell the story. You have to get it out of your brain and into these other mediums. And I do like that process.
I have another picture here I want to show, that this beautiful graphic, this poignant drawing that Lois said was shown at the private memorial you all did for friends and family. Where did this come from, Todd? Well,
it was random. An artist by the name of Ricky LaChance, he published that, and it got sent to me, and I was like, wow, where did this guy come from? And he's not a famous artist. He's like a lot more famous now because that's now been everywhere. But I chose to use that because I did think that it was very poetic in the sense that it showed the two of them walking off together in character. And in the end, especially with Carrie, I mean, she really was Princess Leia. I mean, like the character is Carrie. I mean, so she and Princess Leia were one. Now, my mother, my mother Kathy Selden, from Singing in the Rain. Well, I mean, a piece of her was, but she was a little bit broader. My mother had a very broad and capable ability to transcend everything from comedy to dancing and singing. And, I call her a quadruple threat. But I just thought that picture, was beautiful. And I wanted to actually have a sculpture made and put it on their tomb where I put them at Forest Lawn. But they wouldn't let me do it because you have to be some kind of an Italian artist or something to, it needs to have angels. Anyway, we got a nice statue done, but it wasn't that. I would have liked that more than, I like what's there, but I would have really liked that.
Yeah, I can't think of anybody really that has had a career with more range than what your mother had. And we touch all most of the high points, Abba Dabba and Betty Boop and Singing in the Rain and Unsinkable Molly Brown and How the West Was Won and Irene, and we cover a lot of ground, but it doesn't even touch the surface of all the stuff she's done. Like I was thinking in later years, like that amazing movie Mother, or her performance in the Liberace, the Beyond the Candelabra, or or her regular arc on Will and Grace. I mean, she just kept showing up with amazing performances in all these different mediums. Through her entire life. Nobody does that.
Well, she loved that challenge. That was one thing she liked about film and television, was that she liked the challenge of becoming a character. When they called her for Behind the Candelabra, she was like, oh, I'd love to do that because I knew Liberace well and I was good friends and I knew the mother and I'd love to play a Jewish mom like that. And everybody was like, wait a minute. I mean, you're like as Goya as it gets. How are you going to do it?
Right.
She goes, you don't understand. I married 2 Jewish men. I had mother-in-laws that were Jewish.
Right.
I got the Jewish thing down. And boy, did she. So here's the weird part of that story. So I got this text one day, and somebody sends me this picture of this older Jewish woman. And I'm like, what the hell is this pic? Why would somebody send me this random picture of this? It's my mother.
Wow.
I mean, I'm telling you, I did not know who it was.
That is crazy.
And she did the whole thing. She had the prosthetic nose done. She wore the clothes were my grandmother's clothes. I mean, she chose the glasses were my grandmother's glasses. She chose all of that to make sure that she nailed it. I mean, she not only wore exactly what they wore, she talked exactly like my step great grandmother. I mean, it was my great grandmother was a Jewish lady that survived the Holocaust. She was Harry Carl's mother. And she had a heavy Jewish accent, talked a lot like my mother portrayed that role. And she said to my mother one day when she was like 98, she says, I know I should know you. Nobody's home. Nobody's home. So she was smart enough to know that she was losing it, but she was this beautiful lady who had survived so much and was such a happy person. When you think about all that she had been through, you think, oh, you could be angry at the world. But she wasn't. She was just grateful, and it was a beautiful person. And my mother liked to see things like that. She would then remember that and then bring it. She brought all that to bear in that role. So
yeah, it's funny that you mentioned. It's funny that you mentioned that you didn't recognize her, because I watched that movie and then I was reading something after it that said Debbie Reynolds was wonderful and blah blah blah, and I was like, Debbie Reynolds wasn't in that movie. Who was she? And so I went back and I was like, I couldn't believe that was her. I watched the whole movie, didn't recognize her at all. So
I've been friends with Tom Hanks since Carrie did a movie with him many years ago called, I think it was The Burbs. And I was at Telluride Film Festival after we did the film Bright Lights. And he ran up to me and he was like, oh my God, you've got to tell your mother how amazing that was. I mean, he would not stop talking about it. He thought it was such a great thing for her to, down dress like that. etc.
Amazing
I said, hey,
performance.
man, I said, you tell her. I just gave him my cell phone and said, you tell her. But that was who she was. Like the Molly Brown thing wasn't much of a reach for her because she, first of all, was a tomboy, and she was very much that character in life. She was all about surviving and overcoming, and everything about that was her. That was like almost like not acting. Obviously, she did a great job with it. Singing in the Rain, was very much who she was at that time. But, there's also, as you were starting to talk about the music side of it, you mentioned mainly these movies that were musicals, but she made like about 7 or 8 albums. And there's some terrific music that she recorded. You mentioned Irene. By the time she did Irene, I think her voice was the best ever. I mean, she sings as I'm Almost Chasing Rainbows or You Made Me Love You. I mean, she kills it. And her vibrato is like, Keely Smith kind of stuff. I mean, it's like she's just on it.
I have a friend who told me that he saw a rerun of an old Ed Sullivan show the other day of Debbie with a guitar singing, and I thought, oh, was that the singing nun? Thinking it was that, and he said, oh no, it was like she was doing a song with a guitar, like something folky.
Yeah, she actually threatened to do that towards the end of her career, but so she learned to play the guitar for the singing nun, not like brilliantly, but enough to to play through it, and that caused her to put that in her act. I have that guitar and the outfit still. In fact, that's on display here at the house, and I always appreciated the fact that she wanted to learn an instrument and wanted to she was always pushing the envelope, you know what I mean? And the thing that was dangerous is once she started on something, she would want to be the best at it. So if you kind of got her going on this guitar thing, God knows she'd, want to be Jose Feliciano. You couldn't shut her down.
So Todd, I have one more picture I want to share. It's not like your family tree is not enough celebrities already, but now your niece, Carrie's daughter, she's a rising star herself. The
arrival of Billie when she was very young was really important to Carrie because it really altered her life, gave her a reason to be sober and to be responsible in many ways. I mean, we had a pretty privileged life, and she kind of, and then later when she had a lot of money, she could kind of do whatever she wanted, and didn't require a lot of discipline in her life other than showing up to the set or the job. But I mean, in life, Billie required discipline in life, and she became a mother, and it was really good for her. And she loved Billie more than anything, and it is what held her together in many ways. I think we would have lost her sooner if it wasn't for Billie. So looking at that now, I think Carrie would be looking down and be very, very happy at what she would see. All along, she used to say that Billie has got this amazing setup. She's got. Look at her mother, look at her grandmother, look at her father. There's just so much talent in her gene pool that how could she not? What she is turning out to be. And
right.
The answer is there's plenty examples of that being screwed up. But she is really honing her gifts, and it's really fun to watch her evolve, and get serious about it. At first, she said, "Yeah, I'll do this," and she wasn't really serious about it. She wasn't. I wasn't encouraged by that approach to it. Let's put it that way. But now she's become much more serious and is really gifted.
Yeah. Well, she has quite a few credits too.
Yes. Well, it's not enough though, just to look, her father could probably get her almost any job she would want.
Right.
But I always say when I was a kid, Carrie and I, same thing. We can probably get the door open, but you better know what you're doing when the door opens.
Right.
You better be able to hold up your end of the log. And she certainly can hold up her end of the log.
Yeah. Well, Todd, I cannot tell you how much it means to me that you were able to join us today. I know how busy you are. I know how productive you are over there in that house and that in your
you can
company.
See I wore my best outfit. I literally came running out of a construction zone in a t-shirt to do this, but I didn't want to miss it because I want to I'll do anything that sort of helps perpetuate my mother's legacy. And when you have people like Lois that want to pay tribute to her, I'm certainly supportive of that. type of thing, and I know my mother would be.
Well, we appreciate it. Lois, is there anything you want to say, saying goodbye to Todd?
I just appreciate so much and hearing the stories again, and just thank you so much for lending your gravitas and just being here. Really appreciate it.
And Todd, I want you to know that your mother's memory is in very good hands with Lois, because what we're doing is an incredibly loving tribute, and Lois just holds Debbie and her time with Debbie in the highest esteem, was such an important figure in her life, and that's what the whole show is about. So,
well, in a way, she's one of the girls, you know.
Yeah, indeed.
So my mother had her girls, you know, and she was one of the girls for a time, and my mother always remembered the people that she performed with. I guarantee you she knew every one of them going back to the beginning of time. So she would, you know, certainly remember her girls. And if they were her girls, then they're my girls.
Great. Love it. Thank you so much. And so we'll say goodbye to Todd now, and then we'll be back in a few minutes with Ava Nicole Frances. Thank you. Oh my God. That was so exciting. I cannot tell you how thrilled I am that Todd was willing to come and talk to us today. You know, I knew that he, you know, from working on this show with Lois, I know that she felt like she was part of their family. You know, Debbie was very embracing of the people that worked for her, and it was a real troop for the years that they were together. And she was there for Carrie and Todd to grow up. So when Lois said that she could call Todd and ask him, you know, I was like, oh my God, I'm so excited. So we had him. I'm so excited. So we have another exciting guest star now. One of the in addition to telling Debbie's story, we also talk in the show about young Carrie Fisher, because as we've mentioned earlier, Carrie's performed in Debbie's act as young as 13 years old, right, Lois?
Yeah.
And so we wanted to represent that time of the powerhouse young Carrie Fisher. And so I happen to know of this phenomenal young talent out of San Francisco named Ava Nicole Frances. And I talked to Lois about, what do you think about having her come sing the Carrie songs? And Lois, I sent you some clips, and what did you say?
I said, she's fantastic. No, absolutely. She's just wonderful. Great voice, wonderful presence. And,
yes, and sweet young girl. And so we dragged her out of school early today to be able to come and be on Zoom with us. So don't call the truant officer, but here, please help me welcome Ava Nicole Frances. Hey.
Hi.
Hey, girl. Thank you so much for being here.
So happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
I'm sorry to make you leave algebra early or whatever it is you had to do.
No worries. No worries.
But glad to have you. So let's see. You're an amazing singer, right?
Thank you.
Yes,
and B, you are, you know, what are you, 17? Is that right?
Yes,
17.
I'm 17.
And you already have a very happening career. I mean, I met you a couple years ago by way of my friend Amy Rubinate, who is a singer I've worked with, who's a really talented singer who doesn't do it enough because she has a very successful career in another field, but she's a fantastic singer. And one of her lifelong friends is one of your fathers. And so they introduced me to you. And I've had you in several of my charity events, most specifically for Project Angel Food. And you always bring it down the house and big things. So when this opportunity to represent Carrie came up, I thought you're like the perfect person because Carrie was a little diminutive and you're a little diminutive yourself. How tall are you?
I'm 5'3.5".
Oh, taller than Carrie. I think Carrie was 5'1", right? Maybe. Little. But anyway, and you're going to sing Carrie's signature song in the early days was Bridge Over Troubled Waters.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the show, we actually just had Todd referencing, Lois, did you know that performance where she sang I'll Never Say No to You where Carrie sang "I'll Never Say No to You" to Debbie was Debbie's last performance ever. That was her last live show.
I knew that it was one of the last. I didn't know it was the
Yeah.
absolute
Todd
last.
said, I saw Todd someplace else say that was their very last show. So we're going to reenact that moment. And it's very moving. I'm thrilled. It's very effective. We've rehearsed a few times already, and it's going to be so great. Once again, Sunday, September 26th, if you're watching this live in real time, brunch at Catalina Jazz Club in Los Angeles. Tickets at catalinajazzclub.com. But that's just one of the many things you've been doing, Ava. Tell us a little bit more about your background. You've done 1,000 things and you're barely a baby.
Yeah, so I started when I was younger. I had a cabaret show with my father, and then about 4 years ago, I met Charlotte Crossley, I met through you.
And how did you meet her, please? Thank you, through me.
Yes, I met her through you, Clifford. I did a Project Angel Food benefit charity. And I performed first, and then she had gone on a couple songs after me. And from on stage, she spoke to me and she was like, "You would make a great Tracy Turnblad," because she had just played Motormouth on Broadway. And I was like, I just played Tracy in a school production. And so, we hit it off really well. And so we decided to team up, and now we have our own show called Mutual Admiration Society.
That was packed to the rafters when you did it at Feinstein's in Los Angeles right before the pandemic. And you guys are getting ready to do it at New York at Feinstein's at 54 Below in January.
Yes, that's incredible. It's right there. Yeah, that was me and Charlo.
We have to say, musical director Michael Collum at the piano, yes. My buddy Michael Collum.
Yes, so much love for Michael and so much love for the whole team. Yeah, it's incredible. So our current show, Mutual Admiration, is this. Basically, it's the same show that we had done in LA a little bit ago. But now we have some amazing guest stars. We have Miss Kate Loprest and Ula Hedwig, both huge Broadway people, and I adore them so much. Bet and Ula actually started. Not Bet. Charlo and Ula started out as
Harlettes. They were original Harlettes.
It's gonna be quite the show. I'm very excited, and I'm honored to be at 54 Below.
Yes, very exciting. Also, we just put something else on your plate. For anybody that's watched this podcast before, they know that my friend Michael Collum and I, who's a wonderful musical director, we were very frustrated during the quarantine shutdown. And we decided we needed to find a way to sing. So we gathered a couple great singers, people like Julie Garnier, with amazing voice, Rena Strober, amazing voice, Mary Bogue. And we had little backyard cabaret concerts that we filmed outside the porch of his house with his grand piano on the porch, and we'd sing these things. Well, anyway, Michael just got a gorgeous new house in Palm Springs. Yeah. So we're going to do a Palm Springs version of our show, Virtually Yours. And you're going to be in town for it, and you're going to come sing a couple solos. Also, Glenn Rosenbaum is going to do it, and Bonnie Gilgallen, both Palm Springs local people. And Charlotte's going to come and do a duet. So that'll be, I know we're filming it October 16th, but it'll probably take a week or two to get up. But I look forward to that being available. And then we've got you at Catalina on September 26th.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and you're, other than that, you're just a real girl that goes to real high school, right?
Yeah, I'm lucky enough to go to a performing arts school here in San Francisco. So we have like our academics for half a day, and then our department. I'm in the musical theater department. Hopefully, we'll go on to pursue that in college.
And this is your last year?
Yes, this is my senior year of high school.
Now, are you a person that thinks about where you're going to go to college, or do you just expect you'll be on Broadway by then?
100% have thought of this my entire life. My dream school is NYU, Tisch, for musical theater. So I'm applying early decision. So I will know by December whether I get in or not, which is nerve-wracking, but also I'm lucky enough to be able to apply. And yeah, just, I mean, anywhere that I have a musical theater focus,
Right.
for sure.
And you also just did that great Broadway boot camp thing that Kristen Chenoweth produces with Richard J. Alexander and my close friend Lara Teeters, one of the teachers there. You did that this summer too, right?
I did, yes. That was definitely one of the highlights of anything I've done performance related. I learned so much. It's so much fun. If anyone is watching this and has like a kid that is interested in doing this, please send them to there or have them audition. It's Kristen Chenoweth's Broadway Boot Camp. It's only good things to say.
Also, you're a product of many years of the Sean Ryan camp, right? Sean Ryan, he's been interviewed on my show, very good friend of mine, incredible performer, one of the best ever. But he runs a youth theater camp in San Francisco area, right?
Yeah, it's in the Santa Cruz Mountains. It's called Young Actors Theater Camp. It's a sleepaway camp for kids interested in any of the arts, ages 8 to 18. So I've been going since I was 9.
Wow.
I was just there this past summer, first time back since COVID. So also 10 out of 10 would recommend. Only amazing things to say about them and what you learn and the people you work with and the environment. It's incredible.
And he brings a lot of celebrity talent from New York too. He gets a lot of great people. He told me the other day he's going to try to come to Catalina's. So that's exciting.
Oh, really?
Love to have him.
That'd be good.
So I guess before we let you go, I'm going to show a video of one of the songs you did for me. Every year, for the last 22 years, I've been doing a tribute to Barbra Streisand, which the money goes to Project Angel Food. And Barbara's taken an interest in it occasionally and supported it. And I guess it was the year before the pandemic, right? It was the last one before the pandemic shut us down. You were at Catalina's and you did a couple numbers, but one I remember particularly, the roof came off the joint at the end of it. So I thought I would end this podcast with you sharing you in action with that song. So thank you so much for making yourself available to be here. I hope you don't get in trouble with any of the authority figures, male or female authority figures in high school. But we appreciate you being here, and I look forward to seeing you soon on stage at Catalina's.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, and thank you so much to you and Lois for including me in this.
Lois, anything you want to say goodbye to Ava?
Just looking forward to it so much. You are just such a great talent, and thrilled that you're part of this show.
Yeah, so you're a very special addition to an already very special event. So we'll watch you in action, and then we'll come back and say goodbye. All right, but for now, bye-bye, Ava.
Bye.
So, Barbara has a large gay following. I know, shocker. So my 2 biggest fans are my 2 gay dads. If you didn't know, these were in my Easter basket. Standing in the wings, all prepared to start. Usually I'm tense, a pounding in my heart. Blow the bugle, sound the cymbal. All my troubles fill a thimble. I'm as happy as it's legal to be. Come on, kids, let's hear it for me. Get the tom-tom, start the drumming, cue the chorus, keep 'em humming as I'm climbing off the limb of that tree. Come on, kids, let's hear it for me. For this overwhelming sensation, I could stand a standing ovation. Give my entrance cue to the band and give the little lady a great big hand. Slide the trombone, let it swell attraction to see. So applaud it and cheer it. Come on now, let's hear it for me. Standing in the wings, all prepared to start. Usually I'm tense, a pounding in my heart, but now I'm not afraid. Those butterflies are gone. My act is looking great. I can't wait to go on. Grab a ticket, find your road, kid. I am strictly a sorrow kid. Tell those googly boogly feelings I'm free. They've been banished by the royal decree. And your head feels so good when you finally clear it. If I saw a worry, I wouldn't go near it. Come on now, come on, kids, let's hear it. Let's hear it for me.
Yay! Let's hear it for her. Yeah, she's so great. I mean, 17 years old, and that was actually more than 2 years ago. So she was 15 there. So she's quite a talented young girl. Anyway, I'm love this show today. I love this project we've been working on, the tribute to Debbie Reynolds, Lois Bourgon's multimedia memoir, which will debut at Catalina Jazz Club on Sunday, September 26th. Doors open at 11:30 a.m. and it's a 1 o'clock show. It's a brunch show, 1 o'clock show. And tickets available at catalinajazzclub.com. And let's see. I want to thank my guests. I want to thank Lois Bourgon and Ava Nicole Frances and the incredible Todd Fisher for making this happen today. And we have other guest performers in the show. Jack Messenger will be performing, representing the space of Eddie Fisher. And Sue Nevins and Sherry Williams from the original Unusual We, the performing group that toured with Debbie, with Lois. And of course, our musical director and the maestro of all the arrangements, Steve Rollins, and our killer band, Paul Morin on bass, and Gordon Peak on drums. And I'm so looking forward to it. Along the way, also, I want to draw your attention to, please check out the next Virtually Yours, which will be available in late October, and will feature Glenn Rosenbaum, hosted by Michael Collum, Bonnie Gilgallen, and Ava Nicole Frances, and Charlotte Crosley. And also, we're going to do the Lois Bergan You Are My Lucky Star Debbie show, my years working with Debbie Reynolds, at the Arthur Newman Theater in Palm Springs on November 28th, matinee. November 28th, Thanksgiving weekend in Palm Springs. And then go to New York. Go to New York, or if you're already in New York, go to Feinstein's at 54 Below on January 19th and see Ava and Charlotte Crosley at Feinstein's at 54 Below. All right, one more time with the poster, Andrew. You Are My Lucky Star. And with that, I say good night, and we'll see you next time. Bye.